The Bloodline has officially been destroyed. Jacob Fatu just ambushed Solo Sikoa and Hikuleo in a ruthless backstage assault, just days before SmackDown. And the moment that has everyone talking? The Usos have finally picked a side. This Bloodline war didn't just escalate, it went nuclear. Smash that subscribe button. Let's break it all down. The WWE Universe is reeling after Jacob Fatu tracked down Solo and Hikuleo and launched a violent, unprovoked attack that turned the WWE Performance Center into a battleground. But that's not even the biggest twist. Jimmy and Jey Uso have made their decision, and with one brutal moment, shattered any chance of a family truce before SmackDown. The Bloodline Civil War was already WWE's most intense storyline. But now it's deeply personal. Solo Sikoa's new faction, HIKULEO, Tom Aloa, and Jeff Cobb, has been running unchecked across WWE. But Jacob Fatu's mission of revenge just reached its breaking point. And the Usos siding against their own brother? That proves this war isn't about power anymore. It's about blood, betrayal, and legacy. Leaked security footage shows Jacob Fatu kicking down the door to Solo's locker room. Before Solo could even react, boom. Fatu speared him through a table. Hikuleo rushed in, only to get dropped with a vicious Samoan drop. But the real shocker? The Usos' music hit. Jimmy and Jey walked in, calm, focused, eyes locked on their younger brother. 10 seconds passed. Then, Jimmy tossed Jacob a steel chair. A silent, irreversible message. "You chose wrong, lil' brother," Jey said coldly, turning his back on Solo. They walked off with Jacob, leaving Solo bloodied and abandoned. This single act flipped the entire Bloodline saga on its head. The Usos' allegiance sends a clear message: Roman Reigns' influence still casts a long shadow. Are they answering a call from the tribal chief? Or acting on their own? Either way, Solo's faction now stands exposed. His grip on power is shaky without family backing. And Paul Heyman? He was spotted backstage, furiously texting Seth Rollins, clearly rattled by this new development. Meanwhile, the absence of Zilla Fatu is starting to raise eyebrows. Is he biding his time? Or preparing for the kill shot? With SmackDown looming, this war could ignite live, on air. Jacob Fatu just gained the ultimate reinforcements. Solo Sikoa just lost his bloodline. This is no longer a civil war. It's a family annihilation. And after tomorrow night? SmackDown may never be the same again. Will Solo strike back? Smash subscribe, turn on those notifications, and drop a comment below. Did the Usos make the right call? Because the Bloodline War is about to erupt, and you don't want to miss what happens next. What if I told you the Bloodline didn't just break apart? It got slaughtered. A family empire, years in the making, was reduced to wreckage in less than 90 seconds of carnage, betrayal, and cold-blooded silence. And it didn't happen in the ring, under the lights, or in front of thousands of fans. It happened in the shadows, off-camera, until now. Because leaked security footage just blew the roof off WWE. Jacob Fatu, former MLW champion, the monster fans have been begging to see in WWE, finally arrived. But not with a handshake. Not with a promo. With a statement. He kicked down a steel locker room door. He speared Solo Sikoa through a table. He leveled Hikuleo like he was swatting a fly. Then, just when the dust should have settled, the real shock hit. The Usos walked in. No entrance theme. No pyro. No warning. Jimmy and Jey Uso stared down their brother Solo Sikoa. 10 seconds of silence. Then Jimmy did the unthinkable, he tossed Jacob Fatu a steel chair. That was it. No speeches. No hesitation. Just steel, betrayal, and a blood-soaked floor. Jey spoke one sentence: "You chose wrong, lil' brother." And just like that, the Bloodline died. Let's rewind. The Bloodline story didn't start with Solo or even Roman Reigns. It started with blood, real blood. With legacy. With the Inoue family dynasty stretching back generations. From High Chief Peter Maivia to Yokozuna, from Rikishi to The Rock, from Roman to the Usos, this isn't just a faction. This is a wrestling bloodline with a deeper heritage than any title belt can hold. But in the past 2 years, Roman Reigns transformed that family pride into something else, an empire. The tribal chief didn't just dominate WWE, he rewired it around him. The Usos bent the tag division. Paul Heyman became a prophet. And Solo Sikoa? He was the silent enforcer, the sword no one saw coming. But when Roman stepped away, Solo made his move. He handpicked a new squad: Tama Tonga, HIKULEO, Jeff Cobb. A brutal, no-nonsense alliance designed to carry the bloodline into a new era of force and fear. But the cracks were already there. Jacob Fatu was waiting. Not in the locker room. Not in catering. Not on Instagram Live. He was training. Watching. Boiling. And when he struck, he didn't just hit harder. He hit surgically, targeting Solo at the Performance Center, ambushing him before SmackDown, and sending a very clear message to the entire WWE universe: I'm not here to join the bloodline. I'm here to end it. But that's only half the story. Because the one thing Jacob couldn't predict was who would join him. The Usos. Jimmy and Jay have been caught in a moral and emotional meat grinder for over a year. Flipping between loyalty and resentment. Love for their brother versus trauma at the hands of Roman. They've been manipulated, bruised, exiled, and pulled in every direction imaginable. Now? They've picked a direction. They've chosen a side. And it wasn't with Solo. Let that settle in. The Usos, the ones who stood beside Roman Reigns longer than anyone, who tore down the tag division with Solo Sikoa, who were once considered unbreakable, just turned their backs on their own flesh and blood. That's not storyline heat. That's war. Here's what we know so far. Jacob Fatu tracked Solo and Hikuleo to a secure area backstage at the WWE Performance Center just 2 days before SmackDown. Security footage, leaked just hours ago, shows Fatu bursting through the locker room door and immediately spearing Solo Sikoa through a table without a single word. Hikuleo attempted to intervene and got slammed with a thunderous Samoan drop. As Solo writhed in pain, blood visible across his face, the Usos arrived. No words. Just a steel chair tossed from Jimmy to Jacob. Jay told Solo, "You chose wrong, lil brother," before turning his back and walking away. Fatu left with the Usos. Solo was left alone, bloody, broken, and silent. Let's be crystal clear about something: this wasn't a beatdown. This was a message. And it's not about power anymore. It's not about titles, brand supremacy, or who headlines WrestleMania. This is about blood. This is about betrayal. This is about legacy turned to ash. The Bloodline saga was always teetering between dominance and implosion. But fans thought Roman would be the one to implode it. That a returning Rock, or a vengeful Cody Rhodes, or maybe even Seth Rollins would trigger the end. Nope. It was Jacob Fatu. And the Usos just lit the fuse. Let's talk fallout. SmackDown is days away. Tensions aren't just high, they're combustible. Solo's grip on the new bloodline is in jeopardy. Will Tama Loa and Jeff Cobb stand by him? Or will they question his leadership after this disaster? Paul Heyman was reportedly seen pacing the corridors after the footage leaked, phone in hand, texting furiously, possibly reaching out to Seth Rollins. There are whispers that even Heyman, the mouth of the bloodline, is preparing for an evacuation plan. And the fans? The WWE universe is reeling. Message boards are lighting up. Twitter is in chaos. Reactions range from disbelief to admiration to pure rage. One fan posted, "This isn't wrestling anymore. This is family trauma playing out in public." Another wrote, "Jacob Fatu just committed televised murder. And the Usos handed him the knife." Thousands of comments, theories, and predictions are flooding in. Was this orchestrated by Roman Reigns from behind the curtain? Is Jacob now the true tribal chief? Will Solo retaliate? And where the hell is Fatu? We'll get to that. But first, let's ask the hard question, did the Usos make the right call? From a strategy standpoint, they've aligned themselves with a man who looks virtually unstoppable. Jacob Fatu isn't just powerful. He's unhinged, and he fights like he's got nothing to lose. In the world of faction warfare, that's the kind of wild card that changes everything. But emotionally? This is their brother. Solo Sikoa, for all his cruelty and silence, is still family. Still the same kid they watched grow up. The same kid who stepped up when Roman needed an enforcer. The same one who helped them fight Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and stood tall when the Bloodline was bulletproof. Now? He's bleeding on the floor, and the brothers who once shielded him walked away. This moment doesn't just split the Bloodline. It redefines it. Because now we're not watching a faction fall apart. We're watching it eat itself alive. And that's what makes this moment the most important development in WWE storytelling in years. It's not a betrayal for shock value. It's the payoff to years of layered, generational storytelling, driven by legacy, family pressure, and unresolved pain. Roman Reigns started this war when he demanded loyalty through fear. Solo tried to preserve it through brute force. Now Jacob Fatu has declared himself the executioner. And the Usos? They're not just witnesses. They're accomplices. So here's what you can expect in this video. We're breaking down every second of that Jacob Fatu ambush, frame by frame. We're unpacking the psychology behind the Usos' betrayal. We're analyzing what this means for SmackDown, for Solo Sikoa, for Paul Heyman, and yes, for Roman Reigns. We'll dive into fan reactions, backstage reports, legacy implications, and what the future looks like for the Anoa'i family inside WWE. So buckle in. Because what started as a faction is now a battlefield. And when blood is spilled between brothers, there are no clean winners. If you're new to the channel, smash that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop your theory in the comments. Because after tonight, the Bloodline isn't just broken. It's buried. Before the chaos. Before the steel chair was tossed. Before blood hit the floor of the WWE Performance Center, there was quiet. Not peace. Not harmony. Just a dangerous, deceptive calm that wrapped itself around the Bloodline like a loaded gun with the safety still on. For weeks, the wrestling world had been walking on eggshells. Everyone knew something was coming. Fans sensed it. Superstars whispered about it. The WWE locker room felt colder. The energy backstage? Tense. Heavy. Off. But no one could predict exactly where the next blow would land. On paper, Solo Sikoa had everything under control. Roman Reigns had stepped away, reportedly for personal reasons and long-term recovery. In his absence, Solo did what any soldier raised under the tribal chief's rule would do. He didn't hesitate. He consolidated power. He acted swiftly, decisively, ruthlessly. Solo aligned himself with Tama Tonga and HIKULEO, and later brought in Jeff Cobb. No fanfare, no elaborate explanations. He simply built a faction from those cut from the same cloth, warriors with a chip on their shoulder and no patience for ceremony. This was not Roman's Bloodline 2.0. It was something colder, stripped of the mind games and propaganda. No acknowledge me t-shirts. No pyrotechnics synced to breath control. This version was straight violence. Straight strategy. And it worked. Within 3 weeks of forming, Solo's new unit had decimated the tag division. Tama Tonga delivered knockout headbutts that left opponents concussed. HIKULEO used his size and brute force to dominate brawls. Jeff Cobb brought agility no one expected from a man of his build. And Solo? He was more silent than ever, but more dangerous too. He didn't need words. his stare did the work. His thumb was the exclamation point. Their mission was simple: erase doubt. Eliminate threats. Cement Solo Sikoa as the new pillar of WWE's family dynasty. But something didn't sit right. No one said it aloud, but the question was there, hanging in the air like a storm cloud: where were the Usos? Jimmy and Jay had gone quiet. In the early days of Solo's rise, they were occasionally seen, backstage, in cryptic Instagram photos, at house shows, but never with Solo. Never alongside the new faction. And never unified. Their absence was like an open wound. Unspoken, uncomfortable, obvious. The Bloodline had once thrived on unity. Roman at the top. The Usos as his wings. Solo as his sword. But that structure had collapsed with time. Roman's grip loosened. Trust fractured. And eventually, brotherhood turned into calculation. The Usos weren't just avoiding Solo, they were assessing him. They watched him replace them without hesitation. They watched him stand tall in the ring while fans wondered where his brothers had gone. And they remembered every time Roman screamed at them in the ring, every time Solo followed orders that involved hurting them. Those memories don't fade. WWE didn't show it on TV, but people close to the situation said Jimmy and Jay had been seen together training in private. Working out at night. Running promos in the dark halls of the Performance Center. Preparing for something. But what? Then came the rumors. Reports surfaced that Jacob Fatu had signed with WWE. The internet caught fire. Fan speculation erupted. Would he debut on Raw? Would he attack Cody? Would he align with Roman? But the ones paying attention knew better. Jacob wasn't coming for Roman. He was coming for whoever wore the crown now. And right now, that crown sat on Solo Sikoa's head. Still, the calm held. No punches thrown. No surprise run-ins. Just pressure, building. Backstage morale was uneasy. Younger talent walked a little faster past the Bloodline's dressing room. Producers whispered to each other about rearranging travel schedules. Referees admitted off-camera they didn't want to be assigned to any match involving Solo's faction. Not because of the violence, but because no one knew what the hell was going on. Even Paul Heyman, normally the mastermind, seemed lost in limbo. Caught between fear and irrelevance. Roman hadn't been answering his calls, according to sources. And Heyman? He knew better than anyone that a bloodline without balance becomes a ticking time bomb. Solo kept winning. Kept breaking people. But every victory felt emptier than the last. Then came the shift. In a backstage segment aired on SmackDown just 1 week before the ambush, Solo was shown talking with Tama Tonga and HIKULEO about tightening the circle. A subtle line, but loaded. He said the phrase while staring at a monitor playing old footage of the Usos winning the tag titles. Coincidence? No one thought so. He was drawing a line. That same night, Jimmy Uso appeared in the crowd, hood up, silent, unannounced. He watched Solo's match. Never reacted. Never applauded. Just stared. After the match, he left. No words. No super kick. Just a ghost from a bond that used to matter. It was the quiet before the shot. The breath before the punch. Then came the day of the ambush. According to leaked notes from internal WWE logistics, Solo and HIKULEO had a light training session scheduled that morning. They were working out in the private wing of the Performance Center, normally locked, secure, away from cameras. Jacob Fatu found them. No one knows how he got in. Security footage later showed a man with a black hoodie tailing a cleaning crew. Not confirmed to be Jacob, but the timing lines up. Once inside, Jacob waited. He let Solo lower his guard. Let HIKULEO head into the shower. Then he struck. The leaked footage is grainy but clear enough to make out the sheer force of the attack. The moment the door slammed open, Solo barely had time to register the blur charging toward him. A running spear sent Solo crashing through a table. Not a gimmicked prop table. A real steel-supported one. Solo's body didn't bounce, it folded. Hikuleo emerged from the back, but Jacob was ready. A headbutt, then a lift, Samoan drop. Done. What makes the footage so chilling isn't the violence. It's what comes next. A moment of silence. Jacob stands there, breathing, watching the wreckage. Then, footsteps. Two shadows enter the frame. The Usos. No music. No posing. Just two men walking with the calm of people who had already made a choice. Jimmy holds something in his hand. A steel chair. He walks up to Jacob. They make eye contact. And Jimmy tosses it. Jacob catches it. There's no hesitation. It's not an offer. It's a confirmation. Solo looks up, bloodied, barely lifting his head. His eyes lock with Jay. That's when Jay delivers the line. You chose wrong, lil brother. Then they turn and leave. Jacob follows. Solo is left alone. And in that moment, the calm that had hung over WWE for weeks finally broke. The gun had fired. The silence had ended. The civil war that everyone feared had gone nuclear. The timing of it wasn't accidental. This wasn't a random backstage skirmish. It was a surgical strike designed to occur right before SmackDown. Just enough time to send shockwaves. Just enough time to force WWE into panic mode. And it worked. By the time WWE issued a statement acknowledging the incident as a non-sanctioned backstage event currently under internal review, the footage had already gone viral. Millions of views. Thousands of reactions. Dozens of speculative YouTube breakdowns. The calm before the super kick wasn't a moment of peace. It was misdirection. And now that the silence is over, every side has to choose whether to fight, flee, or fall. SmackDown is no longer just a wrestling show. It's about to become a war zone. And Solo Sikoa? He's walking into it without his family. It didn't happen in a ring. There was no referee. No commentary. No warning bell. But make no mistake, this was a match. And Jacob Fatu won it in under 30 seconds. No build-up. No promos. Just a steel door flying open and Solo Sikoa's ring collapsing with a thunderous crash. The footage that leaked wasn't cinematic. It wasn't edited. It wasn't scripted. It looked like real security footage. Angled, grainy, but crystal clear where it mattered. You could see the fear in the intern who leaked it. The way the camera stayed on the carnage too long. The panic in the frame. The raw chaos of something WWE couldn't spin fast enough. It begins with Solo standing by a folding table inside the locker room wing of the WWE Performance Center. He's unwrapping tape from his wrist, talking low with HIKULEO, who is leaning against a locker, towel over his shoulder. They're relaxed, laughing, even. The kind of moment that only happens when you believe your enemies are miles away. Then the door explodes inward. No subtlety. No creeping. Just power. Jacob Fatu enters like a wrecking ball disguised as a man. He doesn't pause. He charges. Before Solo can turn, before HIKULEO can blink, Jacob launches his entire body into a textbook, full-speed spear. It's not a lunge. It's not graceful. It's a collision. A shot of pure violence that turns Solo's chest into a target and sends both men crashing through the steel-framed table. The table doesn't fold. It snaps. The top pops upward. Solo's head whiplashes against the floor. A loud, sickening thud echoes through the audio. HIKULEO shouts. He lunges. But Jacob's already up. One step. Two. A headbutt lands flush on HIKULEO's jaw. He stumbles. Jacob grabs him by the waist, lifts him, and slams him into the floor with a Samoan drop that sounds like a gunshot. The entire room shudders from the impact. Then silence. Solo tries to crawl. He's not knocked out, but he's hurt. Bad. His forearm is bleeding. His breathing is heavy. He looks up, confused, groggy, not sure what just hit him. Jacob steps back. Doesn't say a word. And that's when the moment turns. Two figures enter the frame. Jimmy and Jey Uso. Walking slowly. Calm. No emotion in their faces. No security follows them. No panic. They're not reacting to the fight. They're arriving for it. Jimmy holds a steel chair in his hand. Not raised. Just carrying it. He approaches Jacob. They lock eyes. Jacob gives a slight nod, barely noticeable. Jimmy tosses the chair. Jacob catches it. Then nothing. No chaos. No celebration. Just a cold transaction. A handoff. Solo's eyes widen. His mouth is bloodied. His hand reaches out, not for a weapon, not to fight, but in disbelief. Like a brother trying to find reason where none exists. Jey steps forward. Leans down slightly. Looks Solo right in the eyes. You chose wrong, lil' brother. Then he stands up. Turns his back. Walks away. Jimmy follows. Jacob follows them both. Solo is left on the ground. Blood running from his mouth. Face twisted in disbelief. Body barely moving. This is the final frame. This is what the world saw. And when they saw it? WWE imploded. Within 20 minutes of the footage hitting social media, hashtags were trending worldwide. Hashtag Jacob Fatu. Hashtag Bloodline ambush. Hashtag Solo Sikoa. Hashtag Usos. One Reddit thread gained over 12,000 comments in less than an hour. This wasn't just a surprise. This was betrayal broadcast in real time. And what made it worse? No one denied it. WWE didn't try to scrub the footage. They didn't issue a cease and desist. They leaned into it, slightly. A single tweet from WWE's official account read, unprovoked. Unfiltered. Unforgivable. It didn't name names. But it didn't need to. The footage had already done that. WWE's backstage team scrambled. Sources say Paul Heyman was on the phone within seconds of the leak, demanding to know who allowed Jacob into the building. Producers were reportedly told to rewrite segments for SmackDown. Security was doubled. Internal communications were flooded with questions no one could answer. Was this a shoot? Was this sanctioned? Was this planned? The truth? Yes, and no. Jacob Fatu's arrival had been expected. Quietly. Privately. His paperwork had been finalized weeks ago. But the how of it? How he would debut, where, and against who, was kept secret even from high-level producers. Only a few people knew the target. Fewer still knew the timing. And as for the Usos? That was the twist. No one saw it coming. Not this way. They had spent months playing the middle. Caught between loyalty to Solo and the pain of what Roman had done to them. They had the most reason to hate the system, but they also had the most reason to protect it. What the footage showed was that they'd made their choice. And it wasn't family. It was retribution. It was restoration. Jacob Fatu wasn't there to carry the bloodline forward. He was there to burn it down. And the Usos? They handed him the match. The symbolism of the steel chair can't be ignored. In WWE lore, a chair is more than a weapon. It's a decision. It's a signal. The moment Jimmy tossed it, he didn't just pick a side, he declared war. What made this moment iconic wasn't just the violence. It was the restraint. No shouting. No dramatic speeches. Just one gesture. One line. And silence. Because sometimes silence says more than a promo ever could. The visual of Solo lying there, bloodied, abandoned, staring at the ceiling, will be replayed for years. That image is the death certificate of the Bloodline. Not a faction. Not a gimmick. But a family. Destroyed from the inside. And what's most chilling? Jacob Fatu hasn't said a word. No press statement. No tweet. No interview. Just impact. And if that's how he introduced himself to WWE? What comes next? SmackDown looms. Solo's injuries are real, but not severe enough to rule out an appearance. That makes him dangerous. Desperate. But he's alone now. His brothers are gone. His trust is gone. And Jacob Fatu is still lurking. The ambush wasn't just a brutal attack. It was a reshuffling of power. A demolition of whatever structure Solo thought he had built. And now? WWE isn't just waiting to see who returns fire. They're waiting to see who survives. Because if that level of violence was Jacob Fatu's first move, then no one is safe. Not Solo. Not Tama Loa. Not Paul Heyman. Not even Roman Reigns. Jacob came to claim blood. And he didn't leave empty-handed. The footage of the ambush was brutal. The spear. The Samoan drop. The broken bodies. All of it sent shockwaves through WWE and the wrestling world. But none of it, not even Jacob Fatu's violent arrival, shook the foundation quite like what happened in the final seconds of that leaked video. Two men entered the room. And everything changed. For nearly a year, the Bloodline saga had been a high-stakes drama unfolding in weekly segments, pay-per-view main events, and backstage brawls. Roman Reigns was the center. The Usos were the muscle. Solo was the future. Paul Heyman was the brain. But when Jimmy and Jey Uso walked into that locker room, calm, collected, without music, without a word, that entire structure collapsed in real time. People talk about moments in wrestling. Shocking betrayals, unforgettable returns, surprise cash-ins. But this wasn't just a moment. This was a sentence. A judgment. A declaration. You chose wrong, lil' brother. Those 5 words didn't just punctuate a beatdown. They rewrote the story. Until then, Solo Sikoa had operated like a soldier following a mission. Roman left. Solo moved in. He assembled his team, enforced dominance, and projected power. He never asked the Usos to fall in line. He expected it. He believed blood would bind them. He was wrong. The look on his face, bloodied, dazed, humiliated, wasn't just pain. It was recognition. It was the moment Solo realized he was outnumbered not by muscle, but by meaning. His brothers weren't coming back. They had chosen the warpath, and he was standing on the wrong side of it. What made the betrayal even colder was the simplicity of it. No chaos. No superkicks. No yelling. Just Jimmy handing a steel chair to Jacob Fatu. It was like watching a crown change hands in slow motion. Not ripped. Not stolen. Handed. And for Jacob Fatu, it was all the invitation he needed. But for the WWE Universe, that chair toss landed like a bomb. Because up until that moment, fans still held on to one sliver of hope. That somehow, someway, the Usos would reunite with Solo. That they'd bury the past, align against a bigger threat, and restore the Bloodline to its full strength. Maybe even do it without Roman. A new generation. A new purpose. That hope died in that locker room. And no one felt it more than the people backstage. Reports from insiders say the entire production team froze when the security footage first aired internally. People assumed it was an elaborate storyline video package. When they realized it was real-time leaked footage, people started texting each other from different departments. Producers, writers, executives, agents, talent. Everyone saw it. And no one could look away. One source backstage said, "It felt like someone had died. Like a funeral just happened in front of us, and we didn't know what to say." But it wasn't just emotion. There was strategy in it, too. The timing of the betrayal couldn't have been more precise. WWE is on the brink of one of its biggest international events. SmackDown is headed into a stacked card. Roman Reigns is still on the shelf. And the Bloodline, once the promotion's most stable force, is now splintered beyond repair. By turning on Solo now, the Usos didn't just break ties. They destabilized the entire WWE hierarchy. Think about it. Roman Reigns' absence created a vacuum. Solo tried to fill it through brute force. Jacob Fatu just walked into it like it belonged to him. And the Usos just handed him legitimacy. That's not a twist. That's a coup. But it's not just about control. It's personal. Because if you rewind the tape far enough, you'll see the slow unraveling of trust began long before this ambush. Back when Roman first demanded Jay fall in line or be exiled from the family. Back when Jimmy watched Solo attack him on Roman's orders. Back when the Usos sacrificed everything to help Roman stay on top, only to be discarded the moment they wavered. This isn't a betrayal without cause. It's payback. And the way they delivered it, coldly, with clarity, makes it clear. This isn't about choosing sides in a faction. This is about closing a chapter of family dysfunction the only way WWE knows how, violently. For Jay, who walked away from the Bloodline once before, this moment was different. The first time, he left out of principle. This time, he returned with a plan. He didn't just leave the past behind, he weaponized it. And for Jimmy, who took the brunt of Solo's aggression months ago, there was no forgiveness in his eyes. There was only finality. They weren't coming to fight. They came to decide. And they did. The silence in that room said everything. Because when a family breaks, it doesn't always shatter in screams. Sometimes, it dies in a whisper. And yet, despite the tension, despite the trauma, there was a kind of poetry in how it ended. 3 brothers. No referee. No crowd. No ring. Just history. And choices. Solo chose loyalty to a legacy that abused them. The Usos chose freedom. And Jacob Fatu? He chose war. But what now? That's the question WWE, and the fans, are racing to answer. Can Solo recover from this, physically or mentally? Will his faction stay with him now that the Bloodline brand is tarnished? What are the Usos planning? Is Jacob Fatu the new tribal chief? Or is Roman Reigns still pulling strings behind the curtain? Backstage sources have confirmed that WWE officials are urgently re-evaluating the direction of the Bloodline storyline in light of the ambush. Creative teams were reportedly caught off guard by how quickly the footage went viral and how intense the fan response became. In fact, one executive described the footage leak as the most powerful unscripted moment since the CM Punk pipe bomb. And fans? They're split. Some are applauding the Usos for finally breaking free. Others feel betrayed. Conflicted about whether to support them after watching them turn on Solo so coldly. And that's what makes this moment so powerful. It's not clean. It's not clear. It's not classic good versus evil. It's family. It's choices layered in pain, resentment, survival, and revenge. WWE has tapped into something deeper than title shots or stipulation matches. They've turned the Bloodline into a lens for generational trauma. And no moment captured that more than the chair toss. Because the chair wasn't just a weapon. It was a legacy passed from one faction to another. From Roman's empire to Jacob's reckoning. The Usos, once loyal to the crown, now serve the fire that seeks to melt it down. That's the moment that changed everything. Not just for Solo. Not just for the Usos. But for the entire wrestling landscape. Because when trust is broken at the root of a dynasty, the tree doesn't grow back. It falls. And the echo it leaves behind? That's what we're hearing now. In the silence. In the questions. In the blood on the locker room floor. The Bloodline saga didn't end in a ring. It ended in betrayal. In quiet. In steel. And as the Usos walked away from the wreckage they helped create, one thing became clear: they're not here to rebuild. They're here to make sure nothing ever rises again. There's betrayal in wrestling, and then there's betrayal by blood. Turning on a tag partner is one thing. Walking away from your stable is another. But looking your brother in the eye while he bleeds on the floor, and then handing the man who hurt him a weapon? That's different. That's blood turning its back on itself. When Jimmy and Jey Uso tossed that steel chair to Jacob Fatu, they didn't just align with a new leader, they disowned their younger brother in front of the entire world. Not in words. Not in anger. In calculated silence. And that silence, more than any super kick, cut the deepest. To understand the magnitude of what just happened, you have to go beyond titles, beyond factions, beyond even Roman Reigns. You have to look at the core of what binds this story together: family. The Anoa'i bloodline isn't just a footnote in WWE history, it is history. It's legacy. Generations of warriors, champions, icons. Every move this family makes isn't just a creative decision, it's cultural. It's spiritual. The Bloodline saga isn't just about gold belts and power plays. It's about identity. About honor. About a sacred family chain that stretches from High Chief Peter Maivia to The Rock, to Yokozuna, to Rikishi, to Roman, and now to Solo, the Usos, and Jacob Fatu. But that chain is broken. And what snapped it wasn't a title match. It was trust. The fracture between Solo and the Usos didn't start with Jacob Fatu. It started the night Solo chose Roman Reigns over his own brothers. When Solo debuted in WWE, he came in as the silent enforcer, a stoic assassin who did what Roman told him to do. And one of the first commands he followed? He attacked his own brother. At Clash at the Castle, Solo's interference helped Roman retain his title against Drew McIntyre. That moment solidified his place in the bloodline. But it began to dissolve his place in his actual family. Jey didn't trust it. Jimmy didn't believe it. But they tolerated it, for the sake of Roman. For the sake of the tribal chief. Because that's what the story required: unity, loyalty, silence. Even if it meant swallowing pain. Over the months, Solo continued to act like a soldier, never a sibling. He backed Roman when Roman gaslit Jey. He executed orders when Jimmy begged for peace. He never questioned the system. He reinforced it. The bloodline under Roman became a kingdom of silence, and Solo was its most obedient weapon. But no weapon stays loyal forever. Eventually, the blade turns. And for the Usos, it wasn't a question of if. It was when. They waited. They watched. They hoped. They watched Solo replace them with Tama Tonga, HIKULEO, Jeff Cobb. They saw their brother rebuild the bloodline without them. They watched him reclaim the throne in Roman's absence. And they stayed quiet, until it hurt too much. That pain became the wedge that Jacob Fatu pried open. Let's be honest, the Usos didn't align with Jacob because they love him. They aligned with him because he represents the end of a system that turned them into villains in their own story. Jacob didn't just walk into WWE with aggression. He walked in with purpose. He didn't want to inherit the bloodline. He wanted to destroy it. And that's the message the Usos were waiting for. Not a call to rise again, but a call to burn everything down. And Solo? He never saw it coming. Because in his mind, he was the protector. The one keeping the legacy alive. But what he never realized was that the legacy he thought he was protecting, the legacy Roman built, was already poisoned. Built on fear. Maintained by gaslighting. Held together by threats, not trust. So when Solo stood in that locker room, blood running from his face, and looked up at his brothers, he expected loyalty. He got truth. The truth that they were done pretending. That they were done protecting the mask. That the Bloodline name wasn't sacred anymore, it was a prison. And that prison had to fall. The weight of that betrayal doesn't just hit Solo. It hits us, the fans who watched them rise together. The fans who remember the Usos celebrating their tag title wins, who remember Solo standing behind Roman like a stone pillar, who remember all the moments that felt like family. It's that memory that makes this fracture hurt. Because this wasn't just a wrestling turn. This was a family fracture broadcast in real time. And culturally, that hits different. In Samoan culture, family isn't just important, it's everything. It's spiritual. It's hierarchical. Elders are respected. Blood is defended. Legacy is passed, not bought. When Roman took the title of tribal chief, it wasn't just branding, it was symbolic. It meant something beyond belts and storylines. So when the Usos walked away, when they turned their backs on Solo, it wasn't just an act of disobedience. It was a declaration of exile. A choice to burn the family tree rather than be ruled by it. And that decision? That wound? It doesn't heal with a match. It changes the trajectory of everything. Because now, WWE isn't just telling a story of power. It's telling a story of betrayal at the deepest level. Brotherhood. Blood. Trust. Shattered. The questions now are impossible to ignore. Where does Solo go from here? Does he rebuild? Retaliate? Or disappear? Does this betrayal harden him further, or finally break the armor? What happens when the only people you trusted turn into ghosts? And what about the Usos? Have they aligned with Jacob Fatu out of strategy, or are they fully committed to his mission of total annihilation? Did they turn on Solo because he betrayed them first? Or because deep down, they never truly forgave him for choosing Roman? And what about Roman himself? If he returns, if he even wants to, will he side with Solo, or with the destruction Jacob and the Usos have initiated? Because Roman may have been the tribal chief in title, but Jacob Fatu just walked in like a war chief with no crown, no rules, and no intention of kneeling. And then there's the fans. Where do we stand? Who do we cheer for now? The Usos, long beloved, just turned their back on the brother who stood by them in countless matches. But did Solo deserve it? Jacob Fatu is a wrecking machine, but is he the necessary purge WWE needed? There are no clear answers. Only fallout. Only questions. Only blood on the floor and steel in the air. What WWE has done here is more than create a dramatic swerve. They've tapped into something primal. They've weaponized emotion. They've torn apart the idea of family and asked a question most people spend their whole lives avoiding. What happens when the people you love most are the ones holding you back? The Usos answered that question with a steel chair. And Solo? He's still looking for the answer, if he can even find one. This isn't a redemption arc. It's a reckoning. And the bloodline may never be whole again. Because sometimes, brotherhood isn't enough. Not when blood gets in the way. Jacob Fatu didn't arrive in WWE with a handshake. He didn't walk down the ramp with lights flashing, fireworks blasting, and a crowd chanting his name. He didn't show up smiling, signing contracts, or delivering catchy catchphrases. No. Jacob Fatu kicked down a door, speared a man through a table, and walked out without a word. Because Jacob Fatu doesn't need a promo to make his point. His existence is the promo. And the statement he made that night wasn't just an introduction, it was a declaration of war. Not on WWE. Not on a title. On the bloodline itself. Let's rewind the story. Long before his violent arrival at the WWE Performance Center, Jacob Fatu had already carved his name into the wall of modern wrestling. Not with glitz. Not with corporate polish. With grit. With blood. With the kind of unfiltered rage that can't be taught, it has to be lived. His reign in MLW, Major League Wrestling, was nothing short of dominant. From 2019 through 2021, he tore through opponents like a man possessed. Not just winning matches, annihilating them. He held the MLW World Heavyweight Championship for over 800 days. That's not just dominance. That's territory. That's tribal. In MLW, Jacob was the head of his own table before WWE ever put Roman on a throne. But his path wasn't simple. He wasn't handed opportunities because of his last name. If anything, the Anoa'i legacy was a weight on his back. Expectations. Shadows. Standards. But Jacob didn't fold under that pressure. He used it as fuel. He didn't want to be the next Samoan superstar to get a corporate push. He wanted to be the one the industry couldn't ignore, even if they tried. And for years, WWE did try. They knew who he was. They saw the carnage. But Jacob wasn't molded in their image. He wasn't clean-cut, market-tested, or easy to package. He was unpredictable. Raw. Real. And that made him dangerous. But you can only keep a storm out of the arena for so long. Because eventually, it breaks the doors down. That's what happened on the day of the ambush. Jacob Fatu didn't debut through PR hype or a surprise save. He debuted by choosing violence. He walked into WWE on his terms, made his impact without permission, and aligned himself with the only people who seemed to understand his mission, the Usos. But here's the part casual fans miss: Jacob Fatu isn't here to join the Bloodline. He's here to destroy it. To purge it of its toxicity. To erase the manipulation, the hierarchy, the lies. What Roman Reigns built was a dynasty based on fear. What Solo Sikoa tried to preserve was a shadow of that control. But what Jacob represents is something far more dangerous, a reckoning. He's not looking for a seat at the table. He's looking to flip the table over and bury anyone still sitting at it. And if you know his story, it makes perfect sense. Jacob Fatu's life wasn't paved with red carpets and developmental deals. He grew up rough. On the streets, in the trenches, watching families succeed while he fought just to get noticed. He was born into royalty but raised like an outlaw. And that contrast forged a chip on his shoulder the size of an arena. When you watch him wrestle, it's not just physical, it's psychological. It's emotional. He fights like every match is personal. Like every opponent insulted his bloodline. Like every second in that ring is a debt that someone owes him. That's not performance. That's hunger. And that's exactly what makes him such a threat to everything the bloodline became. Because while Roman built his empire on forced loyalty, Jacob doesn't ask for it. He doesn't need acknowledgement. He doesn't issue commands. He brings chaos, and lets everyone else decide if they're ready to survive it. So when Jacob launched that attack on Solo and Hikuleo, it wasn't about territory or faction politics. It was personal. It was ancestral. It was war. And in choosing that moment, when Solo felt untouchable, when his new bloodline seemed secure, Jacob delivered the kind of shock that rewrites entire narratives. But this isn't just a one-time shock. This is a campaign. Jacob Fatu is now embedded in WWE. He's here. He's active. And he's already flipped the most dominant storyline of the last 5 years on its head. And yet, he hasn't spoken a single word on TV. No promos. No justification. Because he doesn't need to explain himself. He's not trying to be the tribal chief. He's trying to bury that title and everything it stands for. What made Roman's reign effective was his ability to control narratives. He gaslit his cousins, manipulated fans, and used Paul Heyman as a shield. He made obedience feel like honor. That's how he ruled. Jacob rejects that entirely. He doesn't talk his way into leadership. He earns it through dominance. And now that the Usos have chosen him, that dominance just got lethal. But here's where it gets even more dangerous. Jacob Fatu is not just a physical threat. He's a cultural disruptor. He's not bound by Roman's methods. He's not tied to Solo's mission. And he's not interested in WWE's usual playbook. He doesn't want to be booked into title contention right away. He wants to dismantle the foundation first. Brick by brick. Family member by family member. This is insurgency, not invasion. And that's a nightmare for anyone still holding on to the illusion that the bloodline can be salvaged. It can't. Because Jacob isn't here to fight for the name. He's here to finish what Roman started, and failed. He's here to make sure no one walks away from this clean. Solo is already reeling. Physically injured. Emotionally fractured. Spiritually betrayed. Roman, wherever he is, has to be watching this unfold knowing his legacy is under siege, not by Cody Rhodes or Seth Rollins, but by his own flesh. And the Usos? They've doubled down on destruction. They didn't just side with Jacob. They elevated him. They gave him narrative weight. Because when two of the most decorated tag champions in WWE history hand you a steel chair, you don't need a crown. You've already been coronated. But don't mistake this for a typical heel stable. This isn't Evolution or The Shield or even the old Bloodline. This is something darker. This is something primal. And Jacob is the tip of the spear. His arrival resets the board. Everyone else is scrambling, Paul Heyman, producers, even the fans. No one knows what he'll do next. And that unpredictability is exactly what gives him power. He's not motivated by gold. He's not chasing spotlight. He's chasing retribution. For years of being ignored. For years of watching the bloodline get twisted into propaganda. For every fan who forgot his name. He's not the next Roman Reigns. He's the consequence of Roman Reigns. And now that he's here, he's not leaving quietly. Because Jacob Fatu didn't come to participate in WWE. He came to punish it. And if his first act was brutal, just wait for the second. It was supposed to be his moment. Solo Sikoa wasn't supposed to be the placeholder. He wasn't meant to be a caretaker while Roman Reigns took time off. He was supposed to be the successor. The enforcer turned leader. The new pillar of the bloodline. And for a brief window, that vision looked real. After Roman's disappearance from TV, the WWE universe needed stability. Solo stepped in and didn't flinch. He didn't beg for the spotlight. He didn't grab a mic and cut a coronation promo. He just started collecting bodies. First Tama Tonga. Then HIKULEO. Then Jeff Cobb. One by one, he assembled a new stable built for war. It wasn't polished. It wasn't theatrical. It was blunt force, raw intensity, and silent purpose. No acknowledgement required. He called no one tribal chief. He simply acted. And it worked. At first. The new iteration of the bloodline, quietly referred to backstage as the Sons of an OI, began mowing down opposition. Their in-ring work was stiff, fast, and brutal. It was everything the old bloodline had traded in for elegance and spectacle. Solo's faction was pure violence. But the power he held wasn't real. It was conditional. Conditional on fear. Conditional on momentum. Conditional on the illusion that he was untouchable. And in a single ambush, that illusion shattered. Jacob Fatu didn't just break Solo's body. He broke the myth. The idea that Solo could command loyalty the way Roman once did. Because leadership in the bloodline wasn't just about domination, it was about family control. Roman manipulated. He gaslit. He positioned himself as the apex of the family legacy and dared anyone to challenge it. Solo skipped the psychology. He went straight to force. But force without foundation is fragile. And now, the cracks are showing. Let's look at the facts. Since the attack, Tama Tonga and Jeff Cobb have gone radio silent. No social media posts. No statements of support. No presence at SmackDown rehearsals. Sources backstage say they're re-evaluating their direction. WWE speak for watching how this unfolds before they get caught in the blast. Even HIKULEO, who stood side by side with Solo during the formation of this new faction, has not been seen since the locker room ambush. Some say he's nursing injuries. Others say he's furious. Regardless, he's not by Solo's side. Which leaves Solo standing in the ruins of a kingdom he tried to build too fast, with bricks that were never fully cemented. That's not just a narrative fall. It's a leadership collapse. And that's the tragedy of Solo Sikoa. He didn't ask for this power. He inherited it. When Roman left, WWE didn't crown a new tribal chief. They let the vacuum sit. And Solo stepped into it, not because he was power-hungry, but because he thought he had to. That's what soldiers do. They follow orders, even when the general's gone. But what Solo never realized was that being a leader in this family isn't about strength. It's about control. And he never had it. Not over his teammates. Not over his brothers. Not even over himself. The day Jacob Fatu destroyed him, the aura cracked. And the people who stood beside him? They backed off, not out of fear for Jacob, but out of doubt for Solo. Because if your own blood won't defend you, why should anyone else? This isn't just about a betrayal. It's about exposure. Solo was exposed, not just as vulnerable, but as alone.